One of the most bizarre phenomenons ever is when you can be in absolute medical crisis and you can 100% know the truth. And you're observing everybody around you, doctors and everybody, who can't see the truth. And you know that they're all wrong. And you can't yet convince them. And to be trapped in that mode of you're the only one who knows the truth, and there's all these other people that are way smarter, way more educated, and you haven't yet found a way to convince them that they're wrong. Like that's a nightmare, to be trapped in that. Wonder if that's called something. And it can feel like different things, right? It can feel like you're being persecuted. It feels like you're being, 100% misunderstood, because you are. You're the only one there that knows the truth. You know, all the years that I was misdiagnosed, and I knew I was being misdiagnosed, I just didn't know what was actually wrong. And I'm sitting with doctor after doctor, and I knew they were wrong. But it's so bizarre to be less educated and powerless, trying to convince powerful educated people, that they're wrong. And because you don't have the means yet to convince them. And that's happened over and over again with, my sleep apnea was being misdiagnosed. My sleepwalking was being misdiagnosed. My sleep eating was being misdiagnosed. I was in acute benzodiazepine withdrawal. That was being misdiagnosed. No one could see the truth. And powerful people can destroy you when they're wrong. Like, this just hasn't happened once. This has happened over and over and over again. Vulnerable, sick people are put in dangerous positions because they don't have the means to convince the people that they need help from, that they're wrong. And this is where advocacy should come in, right? But when you refuse to offer any advocacy, you're literally being, you're like torturing people, and people die this way when there is no advocacy. But that feeling of knowing that you're right and everybody around you doesn't know the truth, like family and the doctors, and it's a bizarre feel. It's almost like you're being persecuted, or like one phrase that comes to mind is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I had this philosophy, when I was raising my kid, and I've seen other people in this position. There are times in life there will be times in life where you feel like you're the only one who's not wrong. And you got to be careful, because often if you feel like you're you're right and everybody else is wrong, you really have to evaluate things, because you may be wrong, you know? And you may not be able to see where you're wrong. But and often that is the case. But there are rare times when you're right and everybody else is clueless, right? It's interesting because what I learned throughout this whole process is the general public has really poor discernment. That's a fact. And I sort of lived my life thinking that it was the opposite, that most people have pretty good discernment, but the opposite is true. Most people have poor discernment. And all these different stories that I have, all these things that have happened to me, most people didn't believe me, but you can see the ones in the crowd, whether it's in real life when you're talking to people, and maybe 1 out of 25 people completely believe you, or 1 out of 10, or 1 out of 100. And same on Facebook, you can spot the people who can see the truth, right? And I'm not talking about somebody who's bullheaded and just wants to be right. I'm talking about when you actually are right and you can actually prove it later. But it is crazy how not a lot of people out there have really good discernment. And people in positions of power with poor discernment can destroy your life. They can take away your housing. They can, take your children away. They can put you in a mental institution. They can, give you the wrong treatment, wrong medical treatment that makes you sicker or ends up killing you, or, you know, family member with poor family members with poor discernment can have you locked up or take your children away, or. But and lots of us have been in this position where, you know, all the med injured people, right, and their families abandoned them, and all these um, uh, sick people who have been misdiagnosed for years, and their families have abandoned them, and uh, this false narrative has been created in your medical records for years that you're a malingerer, and it's just anxiety and stuff. It's bizarre to be. It's so horrible and bizarre to be trapped in that. It's not a mindset, in that, in a circumstance like that, where you you know that you're right. You just don't have the means to convince everybody. What a horrible, horrible thing. And I wonder why this has happened to, you know, it's a real, test of, I want to say it's a real test of your character, but I don't know how it's a test of that. It's really incredible to sit with that and tolerate that. You know what I mean? Like, let's say you're in a room of 100 people and everyone's accusing you of a crime that you didn't do, and you know you didn't do it, and you didn't do it, and everybody believes that you did it, and you're in that room with all those people. That feeling of having to sit with that and not being able to change the situation is brutal. And I want to say it's a real test of character or something, but you know, it's something else. It really is something else on the head to tolerate that for years and years. Like, imagine somebody in prison falsely accused of murder, and they're in prison for 25 years, and they have to live with that every day, that they're falsely accused. It's a, you know, it's, and at times it's intolerable. At times it's like being in a straitjacket, right? It's at times it's, you know, almost physically intolerable to tolerate those feelings of you're suffering and you're being misdiagnosed and or falsely accused of something, or you know what I mean? What an ugly thing, you know?